She had no name, at least not one that the Gospels have recorded. It was just called a bent woman, as if her pain had taken the place of her identity. For years 18, she lived bent, unable to straighten herself. The world saw her crooked body, but no one knew the invisible weight that pressed it. It was not only the spine that the fair, it was the soul. The Bible shows us this woman in Luke 13 on a Sabbath inside a synagogue. She was not there because of a miracle. She was there, probably, as she has always been, faithful despite the pain. She didn't go to Jesus. She didn't cry for help. She didn't ask for prayer. She was only present, perhaps in the background, perhaps in silence. But even bowed, she continued to seek the presence of God. How many eyes went through it without seeing it? How many times have you been ignored, judged, or forgotten? In a society that sees illness as a sign of punishment, it is likely that many have associated it with sin. It must have done something, they thought, but she knew the truth. And even though she couldn't explain, she kept going. Sunday after Sunday, or rather Saturday after Saturday, without being touched, without being healed, without being released. Just waiting, or maybe not even waiting anymore, just believing. There are pains like this, prolonged, invisible, silent. Pains that do not cry out, but corrode. Pains that are not seen on the outside, but that bend the soul within. And it is precisely in this kind of pain that God reveals his deepest compassion. Jesus was in that synagogue. He was teaching, and then he saw her. The Bible says simply, and seeing her, Jesus called her to himself. He saw her. A place full of men, leaders, religious spectators, ... He saw that woman. He didn't go straight. He didn't ignore his condition. He stopped everything to look at someone no one else was looking at. That is the gospel. The God who sees. The God who calls. The God who interrupts the course of words to touch the body of someone who has forgotten what it was to walk upright. There was no request. There was no prayer. There was only presence. And that was enough for mercy to manifest. Jesus didn't just see the curvature of the back. He saw the years. He saw the nights. He saw tears that were never explained. He saw abandonment, shame, rejection. He saw the faith of someone who, even bent by life, did not fail to seek. And that changes everything, because it shows us that we do not need to be the strongest, the most expressive, or the most visible to be reached by God. Sometimes all we have is our pain and the courage to keep going. And God honors it. Jesus honors it. He calls by name whom the world has forgotten. He interrupts the worship to heal the hidden. He breaks the protocol to lift up who lives bowed. She didn't know that would be the day. She didn't know that would be the look. He did not know that his history would be recorded forever in the pages of eternity. But God knew, because even when no one sees, he sees. Even when no one understands, he understands. Even when you think it's just another Sabbath, he can make it the day of your delivery. Jesus not only saw her, he called her. In the middle of the synagogue, he interrupted teaching and gave public attention to someone who had spent years in the anonymity of pain. For many, this moment might seem uncomfortable. She was not used to be the center of anything, except for the crooked eyes and silent judgments. But when Jesus calls, it is to restore, not to shame. It is to raise, not to expose. She heard your name, or maybe just heard the voice of the Master saying, "Come." And still bent, she went. She crawled between the benches. She advanced with difficulty. She approached as she was. Jesus did not wait for her to straighten herself. He called her just as she was, bent, marked, weakened, but obedient. And then he said, "Woman, you are free from your sickness." He asked nothing. He demanded nothing. He simply declared deliverance, and then he put his hands on it. And at that touch, something supernatural happened. Something that neither years of medicine, nor past prayers, nor frustrated hopes had achieved. She straightened immediately. After 18 years, she walked upright again. But more than the body, it was the soul that rose, because that touch was more than physical. It was divine. It was the touch of authority from heaven. It was the hand that created the universe, stretching out to redeem what oppression had deformed. Jesus touched it and broke an invisible bondage. He did not say, "You are healed." He said, "You are free." Because the problem was not just biological, it was spiritual. It was a prison that could not be seen with the eyes, but consumed inside. Luke is clear in saying that she was dominated by a spirit of sickness. And when Jesus touches, he does not just treat the symptoms. He removes the root. He confronts what is behind. He releases completely. It is not a temporary improvement. It is an eternal release. And immediately she glorified God. The body answered. The soul answered. The temple, perhaps, was silent. But she broke with years of invisibility and gave to God what pain had tried to silence: worship. There is no true healing without a response of gratitude. When God straightens out what no one could restore, praise can no longer be stuck. It was bent for 18 years, but in seconds it was straightened by the power of the word and touch of Christ. And this is a living message to all who still walk bowed by guilt, shame, fear, or invisible oppression. Because the same Jesus who called her still calls today. The same touch that freed her still touches hearts. The same love that saw you in the crowd still sees us. And the deliverance that was announced in that synagogue echoes as an eternal promise to all who believe. You may have been bent for years. You may have learned to live like this. You may have conformed to the pain, the oppression, the tired soul. But Jesus is still passing through the places of worship. He still sees. He still calls. He still rings. He still frees. The woman had just straightened herself. After 18 years trapped in herself, she was now standing, worshiping God with freedom. The scene was glorious, but not all celebrated. Not all were amazed. Instead of celebration, came criticism. Instead of collective praise, came the voice of offended religiosity. The head of the synagogue, seeing the miracle, did not glorify. He was indignant, not because of the power of Jesus, but because of the day on which it happened. It was a Sabbath, the day of rest. And for that man, to heal was to work, and to work was sin. The tradition he advocated was above the deliverance that Jesus had accomplished. There are 6 days in which one must work. Come, therefore, in those days to be healed, and not on the Sabbath, he said to the multitude. He did not speak directly to Jesus. He did not confront the Lord clearly. He preferred to attack indirectly. He spoke to the people. He tried to disavow the miracle by using the law as a shield, but Jesus did not shut up. He called him for what he was, a hypocrite. Someone who cared more about animals than people. Someone who took the ox out of the pit, who took the ass to the water, but who was annoyed when a daughter of Abraham was released from a spiritual prison. Jesus unmasked him before all, and not only to him, but to all who thought the same. Because the religiosity that hardens the heart before the suffering of others is an affront to God himself. When tradition becomes more important than compassion, it becomes an idol. When the law is used to stop love, it becomes a chain. And Jesus came to break all chains. He looked at that woman and saw no interruption on the Sabbath. He saw an opportunity to reveal the heart of the Father. He knew that day had been set aside for rest. And what greater rest could there be than deliverance? What more holy work could be done than to straighten those who lived oppressed? What more perfect glory could fill the temple than that woman, once bent, now standing, worshiping? Jesus exposed the absurdity of blind religiosity, showed that the problem was not the cure, but the heart of those who could not see the value of a restored soul. They had scripture on their lips, but hardness of heart, and that, to God, is unacceptable. While the woman worshipped, the leaders murmured. While she glorified, they criticized. But the presence of Jesus is not shaken by the resistance of the religious. He came to deliver. He came to heal. And it does not matter the day, the place, or the opinion of those who call themselves guardians of the faith. The Son of Man has authority to do good, even if it scandalizes those who have become accustomed to the weight of lifeless tradition. In that synagogue, a miracle exposed an entire culture of spiritual coldness. A bent woman became the center of divine attention, and the mirror where the hypocrisy of religious leaders was revealed. And so it is to this day. Where Jesus enters, grace scandalizes, compassion confronts, and love reveals what is hidden. Because he didn't just come to comfort. He also came to shake the system. And where he touches, nothing is as it was. What happened in that synagogue was more than a physical healing. It was a spiritual statement, a revelation about who Jesus is, what he came to do, and the depth of human slavery. That bent-over woman was, in the eyes of heaven, much more than a tragic figure. She was a sign, a living message, a metaphor for the condition of all of us without Christ, bent, limited, crushed by the weight of something we cannot carry. She was trapped by a spirit of sickness, and that changes everything. It was not just a bone problem. It was an invisible prison, a spiritual bond, an oppression that lasted 18 years. And the number 18, in biblical tradition, often represents a time of complete bondage. This was the time that Israel spent oppressed by its enemies in certain periods of the book of Judges. And that was the time that this woman spent bent over, unable to look up. And when Jesus set her free, he not only corrected her spine, he broke a chain. He restored dignity. He returned the horizon. She could now look into people's eyes. She could raise her arms. She could walk without shame. What was once a silent routine of pain has become a walk of worship. And that's what Jesus continues to do. He doesn't just come to make us better. He comes to set us free. He not only touches the symptoms, he touches the roots. He does not offer temporary relief. He offers eternal reconciliation. He calls near those who do not find themselves worthy. And when he approaches, he declares, "You are free." Many people today walk curved, not physically, but spiritually. They carry burdens that are not meant to bear. They live prisoners of guilt, rejection, fear, shame, religiosity. They are people who have become accustomed to the position in which they are. They have learned to live without raising their eyes. They learn to attend temples without expecting anything. They learn to smile without hope. But Jesus keeps looking at the back of the room. He keeps seeing who no one else sees. He keeps calling by name. He keeps touching the untouchable. And when he touches, the soul straightens. When he speaks, the shackles fall. When he acts, the invisible is transformed. Because the kingdom that he has come to proclaim is not a religious system. It is a revolution from the inside out. It is a government of grace. It is a reign that begins in the hearts, where he sits on the throne and undoes the works of the devil, just as he did that Sabbath before the eyes of all. The miracle of the bent woman is a call, an invitation, a proclamation. He says to each of us, "You do not have to remain bent. You are not born to walk oppressed. You were created to walk upright, free, before God, and Christ has power to restore what no one else can reach, the pillar of the soul, the center of identity, the spiritual posture. If you thought your condition was permanent, look again. If you thought that God only heals those who scream loudly, remember this woman? She didn't ask, but she was there, and that was enough. Her presence attracted the miracle, and the look of Jesus changed forever his story. The story of the bent woman ends with a simple and powerful phrase, "And all his adversaries were ashamed." And all the people rejoiced for all the glorious things that were done by him. Her healing became testimony. Her deliverance turned into confrontation. And her standing before the crowd was like a silent preaching, but unforgettable. Because when God raises someone, it is not only that person who is touched. It is a generation that is confronted. It is a system that is shaken. It is a culture that is questioned. The woman who previously went unnoticed now becomes the center of God's glory. And all eyes must face what happened. The power of Jesus is greater than tradition. Jesus' love is stronger than oppression. Jesus' compassion goes beyond what religion allows. And perhaps you today are in the same condition. Not necessarily bowed down physically, but overwhelmed inside, bent by the pressures of life, squeezed by old pains, which have already deformed the way you see yourself. You may think that Jesus has more important things to do, that there are people who need more than you, that his story is too small to interrupt the sky. But the text shows us otherwise. Jesus stops everything for a soul. He sees, he calls, he touches, he frees, and he still does it today. He is still present in places of worship, still walking between the banks, still finds those who do not have the strength to perform, still honor those who continue to appear, even in silence, even without hope. The presence of the bent woman was enough for Jesus to stop everything. His presence today can also be. It doesn't matter how many years you carry that weight. It doesn't matter how many times you've been ignored. It does not matter if your pain has no name, or if your condition has become your identity. Jesus knows his story. He knows where it hurts, and he has the power to straighten out what no one else can reach. This woman came in bent and stood up. She entered anonymous and went out eternal. Went in unseen and out recorded in the gospel. What about you? Will you carry on carrying what you should have already left at his feet? Will you continue to attend without giving up? Will you continue to believe that it is too late? The good news is, Jesus is still looking. He's still calling. He's still ringing. And what he did in that synagogue, he can do now within you. You may have spent 18 years bent, or more, but an instant with Jesus is enough to change everything. And when he calls you, it's not to humiliate you. It's to restore you. When he touches, it is not to expose you. It is to raise you. Today, he is saying, woman, man, young, old, you are free. Stand up, glorify to God, because this is your time.